I know exactly how many green beans to cook for one person now. It took me 63 years to learn that particular skill, and I'm not sure whether to laugh or cry about it. My name is Miriam, and until 14 months ago, I had never once eaten alone at my own kitchen table. 41 years of marriage will do that to you. 41 years of set an extra plate, honey, and are you sure you made enough? And the comfortable, predictable noise of another human being moving through your house. And then Howard got sick, and then Howard got sicker, and then one morning in March I was standing in the kitchen measuring out coffee grounds. 2 scoops, not 4. And I understood that the silence wasn't temporary anymore. I didn't cry that morning. I'd done most of my crying already, in hospital waiting rooms and parking garages, and once memorably, in the cereal aisle at the Kroger on Magnolia Street, because Howard had always insisted on the store brand, and I'd reached for it out of habit, and then stood there holding a box of cornflakes like it was something precious. What I did instead was sit down at the kitchen table, our kitchen table, the one Howard and I had bought at an estate sale in 1987 for $40 and refinished ourselves over a long weekend, and I made a mental list of everything that was still mine. The house was first on the list. Howard and I had bought it in 1989, a 3-bedroom Craftsman on Sycamore Hill Drive in Asheville, North Carolina. We'd paid it off by 2011. The deed had both our names on it, and when Howard passed, it transferred to me without question. My attorney, a soft-spoken woman named Ms. Elaine Pruitt who had handled our affairs for 15 years, had walked me through everything. The house was mine. The savings were mine. The investment accounts, modest but real, were mine. My daughter, Renata, my only child, 37 years old and living 20 minutes away in a newer development called Stonebrook Commons, had sat beside me through all of those conversations with Miss Pruitt. She'd held my hand in the parking lot afterwards and said, "Mom, you don't have to worry about any of this. That's what I'm here for." I should have paid more attention to how she said it. Renata had always been practical. That was the word I used when she was growing up, when her teachers said she was focused, and her father said she was driven, and I searched for something that felt less like a critique. Practical. She saw the world in terms of resources and outcomes. She married a man named Douglas, a contractor, broad-shouldered and loud, who called me by my first name from the day they got engaged and never once asked if that was all right. Douglas had opinions about everything: the best way to remodel a kitchen, the best neighborhoods to invest in, the right age to put a parent in assisted living. He offered these opinions freely and often, even when no one had asked. I had tried over the years to find things to like about Douglas. He was reliable with the lawn when Howard got too sick to manage it. He showed up when he said he would. He didn't drink, but there was something behind his eyes when he looked at the house, at our house, at the crown molding Howard had stripped and repainted by hand, at the sunroom we'd built in 2003, that made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't quite name. After Howard died, Renata started coming by more often. At first, it felt like love. She'd bring groceries, sit with me through the long evenings, help me sort through Howard's things. I was grateful. I told her so. I cried on her shoulder more than once, and she let me, and I thought, whatever else is complicated between us, she is here. Then Douglas started coming with her. He'd walk through the room slowly, the way you do at an open house. He'd tap on walls. He'd peer into closets. He'd say things like, "You know, Mom, the bones of this place are incredible." And I noticed he'd started calling me Mom, which he had never done before. "But the market up here is wild right now. You could get serious money for this property." I told him I wasn't selling. He smiled and said he understood. And then 3 weeks later he brought it up again. Renata never contradicted him in front of me. If I changed the subject, she changed it with me, seamlessly. And afterward I'd wonder if I had imagined the whole exchange. But Douglas kept coming back to it, in different forms with different angles. Had I considered a reverse mortgage? Had I looked into independent living communities? The nice ones, not the depressing ones. Had I thought about what would happen if I had a fall? I was 63 years old and in excellent health. I had not thought about falls. The night everything shifted, Renata called me around 8 o'clock on a Tuesday in October. She sounded careful in a way that put me on edge immediately. Renata is not a careful speaker. She's direct the way her father was direct. And she said she and Douglas wanted to come by Saturday to talk through some options. "What kind of options?" I asked. Just some things Douglas has been looking into, she said. About the house. About making sure you're protected. I said that sounded fine. I hung up the phone and sat for a long time at the kitchen table. I called my younger sister, Annette, that same night. Annette is 58, 5 years younger than me, and she is nothing like me in almost every way. I am methodical and she is impulsive. I save. She spends. I stayed in Asheville and built a quiet life, and Annette moved to Atlanta at 22 and spent 30 years building a real estate law practice that, by the time she was 50, had made her one of the more well-regarded property attorneys in Fulton County. We talk every Sunday and have since our mother died. She is the person I call when I don't know what to think. I told her about the call from Renata. I told her about the months of Douglas walking through the rooms. I told her about the reverse mortgage comments and the falls and the nice independent living communities. Annette was quiet for a moment. Miriam, she said, did you ever add Renata to anything? Any account? Any deed? Anything? No, I said. You're sure? I'm sure. Another pause. When's the last time you pulled your property records? I hadn't. Not since Howard died. Not since Ms. Pruitt had walked me through everything and told me the house was mine. Pull them, Annette said. Tonight if you can. Go to the Buncombe County Register of Deeds website and pull them. I did it right there at the kitchen table, on my laptop, while Annette stayed on the phone. It took me a few minutes to navigate the site, and then I found the deed. There had been a quitclaim deed filed 6 weeks earlier. Howard's name had been removed. That was expected, that had happened when he died, but my name had been supplemented. Added alongside mine, listed as a joint tenant with right of survivorship, was my daughter's name, and beside hers, Douglas's. I sat very still. Annette, I said. I see it, she said. She'd been looking it up herself while I was navigating. Miriam, I need you to listen to me carefully. Don't say anything to Renata before Saturday. Don't call her tonight. Don't text her. Don't let on that you know. Can you do that? My hands were shaking. What does this mean? How did this happen without? I never signed anything. That's what I need to find out, she said. I'm going to make some calls in the morning. Can you scan me everything you have from when Howard passed? The probate documents, the deed transfer, everything Miss Pruitt sent you? Yes, I said. My voice sounded strange to me, flat and far away. Annette, can they do this? Can they actually take the house? She didn't answer right away, which told me everything. Let me look into it, she said. Just don't do anything until we talk tomorrow. Promise me. I promised. I didn't sleep. I lay in the bedroom that Howard and I had shared for 34 years, and I stared at the ceiling, and I tried to understand how my daughter had done this. Not whether she had done it. The document was right there, filed in the county record, time-stamped and notarized. But how? How she had looked at me over the last year and a half. How she had held my hand in the parking lot outside Ms. Pruitt's office, how she had sat with me through Howard's things, and all the while had been moving pieces around a board I didn't even know I was sitting at. By 2 in the morning, I had moved past shock into something colder. I got up, went to the kitchen, made tea. I sat at Howard's table and I thought about 41 years of a man who had never once made me feel like I was living in someone else's house. And then I thought about my daughter, who apparently had decided that after I was gone, or moved out, or moved on, this house would fall to her and to the man who tapped on my walls and called me Mom. I thought, not while I'm breathing. Saturday came slowly. Annette called me Friday afternoon. She had spoken with 2 colleagues and had reviewed the quitclaim deed carefully. Her voice was even, professional. This was Annette in attorney mode, and I found it steadying. The deed is problematic, she said. A quitclaim deed in North Carolina requires the grantor to sign. You are the grantor. If you didn't sign it, it's fraudulent. If someone signed on your behalf without a valid recorded power of attorney, it's fraudulent. I've already been in contact with the Buncombe County Register of Deeds office. There are questions about the notarization. Annette, who notarized it? A pause. The notary stamp is from a business called Stonebrook Notary Services, which, if I had to guess, is in Stonebrook Commons, I said. Yes, I thought about Douglas and his broad shoulders and his opinions about the best neighborhoods to invest in. He has a friend, I said, someone he does business with. I've heard him mention it. That's useful, Annette said. Now here's what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm driving up from Atlanta tonight. I'll be there by 10. We're not going to tip him in. Let them start whatever conversation they plan to have. and then I'm going to walk in. You were already planning to visit, I said. It wasn't a question. I am now, she said, and I could hear underneath the attorney voice my little sister, the one who had slept in the twin bed across from mine, and who had cried at my wedding, and who had been the first person I called when Howard's diagnosis came back. No one does this to my big sister, she said. Not on my watch. I hadn't cried since that first week after Howard died. I cried then, briefly, standing in my kitchen at 63 years old, with the phone pressed to my ear. Annette arrived at 10 Saturday morning. She looked the way she always looks, put together, unhurried, carrying a leather satchel I recognized as her work bag. She hugged me for a long time. We drank coffee. She didn't mention the deed or the strategy or what she'd found in her research. We talked about her youngest granddaughter, who had just started walking. We talked about Howard. It felt for a little while like a regular Saturday. Renata and Douglas arrived at noon. My daughter looked the way she always looks. Dark hair pulled back, sensible clothes, that particular expression she gets when she's braced for something. Douglas came in behind her, big and loud, and then he stopped when he saw Annette sitting at the kitchen table. Annette? Renata said. Her voice was careful again. Last-minute trip, Annette said pleasantly. She didn't stand up. Sit down. Your mother made coffee. Douglas looked at Renata. Something moved between them that I wasn't supposed to see. They sat. There was some small talk. I poured coffee. I watched Douglas watching Annette, trying to figure out what she knew, what she was. He didn't know her professionally. To him, she was probably just my younger sister, the one who lived in Atlanta. He relaxed slightly after a few minutes. I watched him relax, and I kept my face still. Renata started talking about finances, about the market, about how, with everything being so uncertain, it might be smart for the family to consolidate assets. Just as a protective measure, Mom, nothing dramatic, and how Douglas had been looking into some options that would ensure the property stayed in the family no matter what happened. It already stays in the family, I said. I'm the family. Of course, Renata said smoothly. But if something happened to you, then it would go to you, I said, as it's laid out in my will, a flicker. Douglas set down his coffee cup. Renata, Annette said, and her voice had changed. Still calm, but with something underneath it now, something with weight. I want to ask you something directly. Are you aware of a quitclaim deed filed with Buncombe County approximately 6 weeks ago, adding your name and Douglas's name to the deed on this property? The silence was complete. I could hear the refrigerator humming. Renata's face went through several expressions in quick succession. Douglas's face went still in the way that faces go still when someone is calculating. We were trying to protect Mom's interests, Douglas said finally, by forging her signature on a legal document, Annette said. She opened her satchel and put a printed copy of the deed on the table. This document purports to have been signed by my sister. She didn't sign it. I've spoken with the Buncombe County Register of Deeds office. I've been in contact with a forensic document examiner in Charlotte, and I've had a preliminary conversation with the district attorney's office about fraudulent conveyance and deed fraud in North Carolina, which carries felony penalties. Douglas opened his mouth. I'd think carefully before you speak, Annette said. I'm a licensed real estate attorney in the state of Georgia with 30 years of experience, and I have already referred this matter to a North Carolina colleague who will be filing to have this deed voided on Monday morning. That's not a negotiation. That's already in motion. What is still undecided is whether we proceed with criminal charges. My daughter had not looked at me once since Annette started talking. She was looking at her hands, at the table, at the coffee cup in front of her. I watched her and I thought about the parking lot outside Ms. Pruitt's office, her hand over mine. Mom, you don't have to worry about anything, Renata, I said. She looked up. Did you know what he filed? The answer was in her face before she said anything. Not surprise. Not confusion. Guilt, specific detailed guilt, the kind that comes from knowing exactly what you participated in. We thought it would be easier, she said. Her voice had gone very small. If it was already done. If you just found out gradually. Easier for who? I said. She didn't answer. Douglas tried once more. He talked about equity and investment potential, and what Howard would have wanted. That was the part that almost broke me. Hearing my husband's name in his mouth in that context, and he talked about how they had only been thinking of my future. Annette let him finish. Here's what's going to happen, she said when he was done. On Monday, the deed gets voided. That is happening regardless of everything else. What you two decide to do next, whether you cooperate fully, whether you want to discuss this as a family, whether you choose to make this more complicated than it needs to be, that will determine what else happens. Douglas looked at Renata. Renata looked at her hands. We'll cooperate, she said quietly. The process took 11 weeks. Annette's North Carolina colleague, an attorney named Miss Harrington, filed the petition to void the deed the following Monday as promised. The notary whose stamp had appeared on the document, a man Douglas had used before for business filings, who turned out not to have been present when the document was signed, faced his own proceedings. I was advised not to discuss details, and I won't, but I will say that by December, the deed was voided and the property record showed only my name. I did not file criminal charges against my daughter. This is the part people want to understand. My sister understood it, even if she spent 3 weeks making sure I was certain. Miss Pruitt, when I told her, nodded slowly and said she'd seen families make both choices and neither was wrong. The women at my church, when I told them in the broad strokes, were divided. Some felt I was too lenient. Some felt I was doing right. What I felt was this. Renata was not Douglas. I had watched her carefully during those 11 weeks, and what I saw was a woman who had let herself be led somewhere she shouldn't have gone, who had convinced herself along the way that it wasn't really wrong, that it was practical, that it was for everyone's benefit. I recognized that kind of thinking. I had seen it in myself at different points in my life, the way you can arrange your reasoning into a shape that looks clean when you know underneath that it isn't. That didn't make what she did acceptable, but it made it human. Douglas and Renata separated in February. She told me over the phone, her voice stripped of all its careful management. She cried. I let her. I did not say I was sorry because I wasn't, but I didn't say I was glad either. I sat with her in the mess of it, the way she had sat with me in the mess of Howard, and when she was done crying, I said, I need you to understand what you almost took from me. I know, she said. Not the house, I said. I need you to understand what it would have meant to lose the one place I still feel close to your father. She was quiet for a very long time, and then she said, I know, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I don't know yet what Renata and I will become. We talk more carefully now. She comes by on Sunday afternoons sometimes, without Douglas, and we sit in the sunroom that Howard and I built, and we drink tea and we're mostly quiet. It's tentative in a way our relationship has never been. Like we've both been reminded that things can break, and we're learning to be more deliberate with each other. The house is mine, the deed says so, and the law says so, and I knew it before either of those things confirmed it. On the days when I miss Howard so much I can't quite breathe, I come into the kitchen and I make tea, and I sit at the table we bought for $40 at an estate sale in 1987. I can still see where he refinished the corner that had a water stain. He was meticulous about it. He spent an entire weekend on just that corner. I used to tease him about it. I run my hand over that corner sometimes, and I think this is what it means to build something, not to own it, not to hold the deed or control the asset or consolidate the equity, to know it by heart, to have given enough of yourself to it that it holds you back. That's not something you can file at the county register, but it's the thing that's most real.